Welcome to the Natanya Experience, where we explore transformation, radical self-love, and the journey from the ordinary to the extraordinary. I'm your host, Natanya Wachtel. Today we have with us Ivy Mahsciao, an exceptional designer and co-founder of Evrmore, the innovative mental wellness app designed to enhance resilience and emotional well-being. Ivy's journey is a testament of the power of resilience and creativity. An immigrant to the United States, only at the age of 9, Ivy faced challenges adapting to a new culture and language with courage and ingenuity. This formative experience ignited her passion for psychology and design, ultimately leading her to found Evrmore. This app leverages AI to make a safe and supportive space where young people can engage in voice journaling to explore their emotions and develop self-awareness. Evrmore stands out in a crowded field of mental wellness apps in part due to its commitment to ethical use of data and its unique focus on voice as a medium for self-expression. The app acts as a vibe check, helping users track their emotional patterns and set personal growth goals. It emphasizes the importance of understanding one's essence and uses this knowledge to build resilience and help navigate life's challenges. Join us as we delve into Ivy's inspiring story, her innovative work with Evrmore, and the profound impact she is making on youth mental health. Hi there. Welcome to the
Hello.
Natanya Experience. Today I don't even know how to say what kind of special guest, partner in crime, soul sister, and someone who I know in many, many ways and who is here to talk about some of the projects and exciting things that she's working on, some things that we're working on together. And I would love to start with the basics, Ivy, and welcome you and say we're so happy to have you here. And will you start off telling a little bit about yourself, and then we'll kind of go into your journey on this wild ride that is startups and tech.
Of course. First of all, thank you for having me, you gorgeous human, you. Um, we've known each other for a bit, right? We kind of reunited at different important junctures or sacred junctures of life. I am very much a designer, I think, at heart. If I could do it all over again, I probably would have had majored in psychology because, as you know, that's sort of my love. I want to live and breathe that. And I think very much I like practicing. So I'm a practitioner. If I love something, I need to apply it. So if I love psychology, I need to find a way to find practical means to bring it to the world, right? If I love design and all of the things that I'm mentioning right now are, I want to say it took time. It took time to know exactly where you sit, what you want to bring to the world. And obviously, when we reunited, I think that's when a lot of sparks were flying, and things became possible.
Yeah, I mean, this show is about people who from all walks of life who have basically been on one path and then sort of shifted to another, and that what they're doing was really passion driven as well as mission driven for impact and betterment on the world. And so obviously you have a lot to say about that. So with whatever you're comfortable, especially in terms of the personal or just the professional, sharing a little bit about how you came to the place right before Evermore was sort of ideated from within you.
Yeah. Um, Sometimes taking a pause in conversations is important. Taking pauses in your life journey, in your career path, is also super important. And I think there were many pauses that I've experienced. Just to kind of, I guess, rewind in the time machine a little bit. I actually came to the country as an immigrant child when I was 9 years old. Um, this is important to mention because he has a lot of Evermore's Genesis definitely contains a lot of those. Oh wow, I'm in a new country. I have to speak a new language. I mean, sort of in the deep end, right? As we
What can
know,
I
when
trust?
yeah, exactly. There's so many new things for a 9 year old. Novelty definitely was just one thing that could be used as a coping mechanism. We can get into that. later in the show. So Evrmore came about with, like I mentioned, my love for psychology, my love for really just trying to crack at what makes us resilient. You know, how how does one's essence have anything to do with that? Because a lot of times when we talk about resilience, we talk about behaviors, we talk about people's personalities, what you're more likely or inclined to do naturally, right? As a 9 year old, I obviously had no clue. I was just trying to blend in. Um, and so Evermore is very much sort of born out of this desire to apply apply psychology for youth wellness, but with highlighting many highlights, underlining that word resilience, because I do think that that is one of the superpowers in this world today. There's a lot of competing agendas. There's a lot of people trying to get your attention, trying to kind of sell you on a narrative, having agendas, right, of their own. As a 9 year old, I think the only essence that I had was I just wanted to be okay. I didn't have my family with me at the time, and that kind of continued onwards to about 13. So in that very small time frame, I think the sparks of imagination, curiosity, novelty of a new environment kind of brewed this perfect storm of resilience. Obviously, that word was not in a 9 years old's mind. It kind of started with me just trying to take on, trying to play a role. And you're gonna laugh, you're gonna giggle. I don't think I ever told you this, but it's not gonna come as that big of a surprise or that much giggles. I mean, you can laugh. It's okay. Um, the role that I was playing when I was 9 was I just pretended that I was an international spy. Um, so what does a spy do? What does a good spy do? Right? In a new place, you blend in. You don't draw attention to yourself. You try to create a sense of normalcy and safety. So that's kind of encircling a lot of things that we're trying to accomplish on Evermore.
Absolutely. That's so big and so much. And thank you for sharing that. I was hoping you would. The gravitas of this genesis is pretty intense, and you're speaking from it in a place of, a lot of healing, but that's obviously trauma. And, as a parent of 9-year-old twins who idolize you, obviously, I can only imagine when I look to my girls and think about what that must have been like for you. It's hard to imagine. And you've come out the other side, not only, blossomed into this amazing energy light bringer, but with the skills, the talents, the love for your fellow humans that many people from that beginning, and in New York City of all places, where let's just say it's not an easy place to navigate your way without a village in your, of cheerleaders and supporters and safety nets and resources and who to trust and who to get help from and where to get food from, and everything is so basic liberties that most people take for granted, and that you've come here is just incredible. And then you've dedicated your life essentially to help others, and that's just really why I'm so honored to be your friend. I'm so honored to be working with you on Evermore and to try and highlight your story and get it in front of more people, because the way we're also doing this is really important for people to understand in terms of, and it's not a big point for now, but just to make sure I put it out there in this first part of the segment, there are a lot of mental wellness apps and solutions and services out there. And some of the things that I think make us really different is where and why this was created, as well as the experience that you go through and the commitment to ethics in using AI. And this is really, really important. I believe we are quite differentiated in this way. And it also means we're on the long and high road, because we're not necessarily willing to partner with just anyone if they don't adhere to some of those ethical standards that we hold dear.
Yeah,
So
that's
with that,
the important part. Yes.
So, with that, if it's okay with you, I thought we could just take a moment and talk a little bit about. So, fast forward to just a couple years ago, where you're working in the corporate world, building household brands. Um, in incredible ways, and you can name drop or not, or just give a sense of them. I don't know if I'm allowed to say where you're working, but it's a mainstream big deal place, and how you kind of started to honor this feeling you had about and what you wanted to do, and how you came to start to create Evrmore.
Yes, of course. And I think name dropping is necessary because in all my name drops, there lies so much gratitude, right? I have such outpouring love for all the people I've had the luck of either working with. You're always kind of building on the shoulders of giants, and I think I was privileged in that regard. Coming through corporate, I mean, instead of just like speaking a logo wall, I think I want to touch on two important aspects. Because my essence is very much in sort of the creative fields. I had a lot of time seeing how sort of how the creative fields evolved, right, and different subdomains of creativity. Um, and I felt like there's definitely something if we kind of go back and do a double tap on essence. um, in schools we don't mention words like that, like, how do we kind of call on the person's inner strengths or inner essence? How can curriculum be designed in a way that actually helps the individual thrive? And a lot of that thriving actually comes with this idea of individuation, which is Jungian, which is really just knowing yourself, right? Um, 9-year-old Ivy didn't know herself. She was pretending to be a spy. But in that pretend play, the role that I played, I knew it was calling me to have this generative drive. The idea of not just feeling safe, but being able to tap on my essence to be able to build skills, right? So going back to corporate, I came through of the agency life in multiple iterations. I was surrounded by super smart and creative people. And so that definitely helped me hone my skills. And a lot of times, you're going to have good days and bad days. You're going to have days where you're like, my essence is crushed. And then you're going to have amazing days where you're like, wow, I'm surrounded by people who can help me uphold my essence. And I'm sure we've all had plenty of different polarities of those experiences. Um, so that's one area of, people I was surrounding myself with, whom I had an idea that they were going to be strong allies. Again, not something you can just know, right? It takes time to get to know the type of energies you have around you. And so the other one, I mentioned two important environments or factors that kind of brought everything to culmination. I was also very privileged in having really great teachers. I attended many programs at this place called the Tibet House, which is based in Union Square in New York. And uh, so many words to describe it, but I'll just say it like how I experienced it. It felt like I was put into a quantum machine where I was surrounded by great teachers who brought a lot of ancient wisdom through the parlance of neuroscience and psychotherapy. So, again, for someone who was trying to really understand, the decision making process, the mind, the psyche, why do we do the things we do? It was the perfect place for me to kind of, again, incubate and trying to distill my essence into something that's applicable. So, fast forward a little more is, now I'm kind of able to weave my skills in the creative field with the domain knowledge that I have built, gratitude to my teachers of really bring some wisdom to sort of the Western culture that I feel like has not been serving us well.
So we're going to take a break in just a few seconds. But before we go, can you give the 30-second elevator speech about what Evrmore is? We are going to feature, of course, some things in the background, some content around this, but just so that it stays with this segment, do you mind kind of giving a encapsulation? And then when we come back, we'll start with the next part.
Yeah, I call Evermore the vibe check because we now sort of in the social, with the new generations, there's always kind of like a check for something, right? To see if you belong, if you're with your tribe, if you're in a good place. So Evermore is very much that vibe checker and a master class for people to build their resilience. And we do that primarily focus on voice because a lot of times in a very text driven world, I think the human voice is not really honored. And there's so much hidden in the voice by just your tone, the language you speak. So Evermore is that vibe checker, and a place for you to incubate your essence.
That's beautiful. And yes, as we know, there's the olden days when there was the telephone was one of the main communication tools, as well as seeing someone in person or actually penning a note. And as that's been replaced, as you said, with texting, with virtual living, there's a lot less actual spoken word. And a lot of these young folks are not necessarily talking to anyone and expressing themselves through that channel at all. And it's one of those when you get into releasing into your voice and your thoughts and your subconscious that also helps you stop editing maybe a little bit about what you're saying and what you're doing. And so we think it is a really wonderful way and a unique way to connect with, like you said, the essence of someone and help connect with that and make that feel supported and help it bloom.
Exactly.
So we're going to take a little break. Yeah, we're going to take a little break and then we'll be back in just a moment. Hi, and welcome back to the Natanya Experience. And my special guest today is Ivy, the creator of Evrmore. And we're going to talk a little bit about what Evrmore actually is and how it works. So, welcome back. And Ivy, let's take it away with what is the experience and what do you do and how do you engage with this app?
So, what happens when we actually have a surround sound of your emotions and your vibes, right? How do we check your vibe? Well, now we have your voice, and we have the words you said. So, like when Natanya mentioned earlier, spoken words, very different than written words. It carries so much more energy, right? Our vibe is in there. Um, what hopefully not what we ate earlier is in there, but sometimes it's in there too. So the AI then is able to present back to you based on what you have recorded some of these emotions, right? Were you feeling a little annoyed? Maybe there's like a little bit of crankiness in your voice. Is your voice full of love? Does it sound like you were using a lot of words that express gratitude? So that's how Evermore checks your vibe. And over time, it's able to also show you your thought patterns, the type of thoughts that energize you versus the ones that deplete you.
That is a great point. And so there's a lot of talk and a lot of research on how that narrative within yourself that sometimes is subconscious, right, can kind of pull you and shift you into your mindset or maybe depressed mood or maybe lack of motivation or maybe gets you going depending on where you're going with that. And so I think, you know, addressing that in a way that deals with it in a subtle way where you might not realize it and shows it back to you is one of the really powerful tools that we have here that we've seen in other, outside clinical studies on how powerful that can be in terms of how you define your sense of self, how you define your purpose, how you even think about the world and the possibilities for you in it. And that's one of the things that I know I'm really excited about and our interns and our testers have talked about, really feeling pretty self-actualized and aware of themselves, but then through the process of going through the onboarding and some of the initial stages being like, "Oh, I guess I kind of default to doing that pattern, and that's not really serving me anymore. Or, oh, when I do that, I felt really good about it. I want to keep leaning into that way of being. And, that's just something I wanted to highlight to say it's an incredible kind of basic basic lever that we're amplifying with technology in ourselves that is so essentially as old as humans have existed in this world, right? In terms of tapping into our subconscious and having that be our guide for the good and towards the good, versus a lot of our influences today can be quite negative. We talk a lot about young people and doom scrolling, whether there's some bullying or FOMO from Instagramming and all that, where you kind of start this narrative that's, I'm not good enough, I can't, I don't know how, I will never, and kind of finding a subtle way. I was saying this to someone also today, like just saying to young people, like, you're great, just believe in yourself, you can be anything. Like that's not going to help. So it has to come from within.
He does. He does. And a lot of times, actually was just reminded, in the app, you can actually, like Natanya mentioned, you can actually set goals. And these are not just like behavioral goals, like I want to lose 10 pounds or eat more healthy and sleep better. You can do that. But these goals are more kind of related to the person you want to become, right? Like, how do you do the things you do every day to help you become a better version of yourself every day? And so the app, the other day, we have like these push notifications that doesn't bombard you. Every once in a while, it just kind of reminds you and be like, it's time for a vibe check. It reminded me that I had once set a goal when the app launched that I wanted to be able to build stronger allies, and for me to even know what kind of allies were going to be in my corner, who are going to support me, and then for me to also support them back, I won't be able to know where to look or who to look if I didn't know what I was looking for in myself, right? Which areas where I needed the most support. And a lot of times, I think people who have a journaling practice already will find Evermore really amazing in that you can still do your doodlings in your journal books and whatnot, but should try it. Try to see if you can just use your speaking voice to record a journal entry, and then see how the way you speak, your tone shifts, and even the words you use change over time. Because from here, and I want to say also from here to speaking voice, it's a much more direct line than writing. There's a lot of editing in when we text and write as well.
Yeah, and so that's what I meant too about like the subconscious. Before you can self-edit, what voice journaling does is lets you connect with, that flowing stream of consciousness that often is your more authentic feelings and thoughts. And especially for young people, that's really tough because you're under a microscope and you have all these identities to curate. And it's just really exciting times to kind of be able to offer these kind of tools to folks at this time. I was wondering if you could just tell us a little bit about what you're excited about for Evermore in this coming year, since we're just at the start of the year, and also what you're looking for in terms of partners, new users, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think, and we kind of can sense this is coming. I want to say there's more and more, and it's really just a pendulum swing. There definitely is more than palpable of a distaste that people have now. I think you just fatigued, right? You get social media with doom scrolling fatigue, and you just need a place to go. It could be your journal, it could be an app like Evrmore and other apps like it, where you can just kind of tune out all the noise and really find center again. So the partners that we're very excited about lied sort of in the intersections of people who feel like they need to be able to own that safe space again. And by that I mean, anyone who feels like they need to change or update their narrative, right? How do you do so in a safe way without inviting unsolicited either attack or not so well intended comments,
Right, like
right?
trolls,
Because
right? How do you express yourself? You put yourself at risk. You put your, I'm feeling this, or maybe you're having a gender identity issue. Maybe you're having a bad breakup. Maybe you're trying to do a skill or task that you've never done before, and you've put it out there and you get attacked. And so this is trying to give a different way of doing that. Unfortunately, that's become the norm.
it's protective. It's protective in that, sharing is optional. There's definitely social features where you can connect with close friends, but that's always sort of the first ring, the first ripple. The app, it was designed in a way where there's healthy socialization already kind of embedded in the experience. So it's not you launching Evermore and all of a sudden it's the world. You're all of a sudden oversharing again, inevitably, or performing in front of an audience. It's also kind of getting people to take a pause and say, who's my inner circle? Who are my inner circle, my allies, right? And what are the kind of intentions and thoughts that I might want to express to them?
And
But
how can they
for,
help lift me
for
up?
people,
I think that, right? That's another thing that we're pretty proud of. I mean, this is all about, instead of feeling like you might not be cool enough or good enough or smart enough or wealthy enough or whatever enough, and putting it out there, this is all about, what do you want and who's here to cheer for you when you go for it. I mean, I'm oversimplifying, but there's a lot of that base safety and community that we're trying to build here. And for people who are kind of nervously stepping out of their comfort zone potentially in some new areas, and that's really the antithesis of some of these other communities, which I think is important to mention because of, some of the more difficult conversations around people who are not feeling so great about themselves, and where we're not talking about today as much, but in terms of self-harm and all of those things are a journey from a time when you start with a loss of sense of basic value on this earth. And so when you have other people to reconfirm for you that, okay, you messed up, so what? Keep going. Or, oh, you want to try that? That's really cool. Like, we're not underestimating the power in that, and how many young people do not have anyone to tell them those things.
yeah, let's also bring back, curiosity and imagination, because a lot of times when you realize that, oh, no one is listening, you go a little wild, right? You can actually let loose. And I think, yes, performing kind of like a performance. Well, we're kind of doing it right now, but we're friends, so this is natural. But we're really much kind of enmeshed in this like performative driven world. It will be really refreshing to just say, hey, here's another way. I was talking about the pendulum swing. I think we had, um, through social media, and it's neither good or bad, but it's just as part of the territory, there's going to be a lot of sharing out there that's going to not be used in the best ways, right? It could be used against you. So there's definitely a distaste for that now. And so the pendulum swings to how can we actually make communities a little more private, a little safer, a little more selective and discerning.
Do you mind talking just a little bit about one of the partners we've worked with in the past couple years, like Girls Right Now? I think it's a really interesting and amazing collaboration, and would really just love to hear just a little bit about that, and maybe even some of what you did with Pratt.
Yeah. I love Girls Right Now. Again, it's a place where creativity thrives. Girls Right Now, they have been around forever, and they're poets, spoken word artists, and writers. Um, and so many loving, and talented mentors, big names, right, in literature, publishing, and media that who have come through there. They were so great. I was actually also invited to give a quick workshop. And again, being surrounded, just like Pratt Institute, where I attended, um, knowing that, the sort of the newer generations are so courageous. I mean, if we kind of think about it, not to sort of go on a tangent, I didn't grow up with a phone in my hand. I had pagers, right? We still remember what a dial-up modem sounds like, and so I think it takes so much courage for young people these days. They were born into this world of having to perform, and whether or not they realize it, and oversharing, right? Sometimes it can have unintended consequences, but a lot of times there's a lot of good can come from it. You can get so much outpouring support and love from strangers, and that's like the best feeling ever. And some other times it could be kind of dark and you know harmful. And so I think Pratt also just kind of opened up my eyes and kind of planted another spark in my head that we also have so many courses these days on designing ethical experiences, right? So, one of our amazing and wonderfully talented supporters and advisor of Evrmore, Pamela, who is a professor and who has written an amazing book on emotionally intelligent design. When I was part of her course for a little bit, I again was in awe of just how her students not just had sort of this inner desire and this inner fire to design ethically. And Pratt being Pratt, such a great school
My
where
father
so
went
so
there
much,
too, so I have a little, it's really cool. Like we have all the
yeah,
threads. Yeah.
so much creativity. They brought a lot of insight through some of the exercises that we kind of participated in. And they also have a lot of, I believe, like continuing education programs these days on all the topics that we've already touched on. Yeah, great partners, right? It's essence when you're with people again, when you're able to kind of find what your true essences are, and then you start to draw like-minded, like essence people, you can actually make a world of difference. You can make your midday into a beautiful day. It can make you just start to kind of, if you're in a funk, you're able to kind of find that buoyancy again. So I think it's important for us to remember that a lot of times we forget our essence. I really think we do. We start to play a role or speak words that are not our own, because I think it's very much an hazard of the 21st century.
Absolutely. So I guess we'll just close out with what are you, or what I keep saying like you, because I don't want to say we because it's a little funny for doing a segment with someone that I'm working with. But what are some of the things that you're looking for, maybe from the people who might listen to this or might see a write up about what we're doing for this coming year? Like, what kind of partners would you say would be best for Evermore, and or you know, just any target markets or anything that you think would be helpful so that if there's folks who are listening and this is a, giving kind of show, the whole point of this show is to get people who have had success, maybe it's commercial or otherwise, to help reach across, around, and through to help those who are still on their way. So what would you ask for of the world if you could?
I will love some partners from the world of behavioral health, and mind and body, especially the ones who are already kind of tapping into the power of mind and body practices, right? How can we actually, again, just enliven the voice, give people the tools to be able to rewrite their own story, to reset their narrative, and be able to do so again, going back full circle. How can we not just sort of apply the latest in scientific literature on therapeutic protocols, but like do so in a way that's delightful, bring creative and amazing user experience back into something that has become overly clinical and deterministic.
And usually
So if you,
painful. I mean, that's
I
part
was
of
going to
it.
say the P word.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
and we're not bashing CBT, we're not bashing, traditional therapy, but we're just saying that there needs to be something else sometimes. And clinicians are spread far and wide and thin, and there's just not enough people for who need it. And so those are just stark realities. But yeah, imagine working through something actually a positive experience instead of like you've gone through a military operation. So yeah, that's a really great way to put that.
Yeah, going back to the word like narrative, right? I think a lot of these solutions also have their own brand or solution narrative, and I think a lot of this kind of narratives are, again, not a value judgment. There's CBT and ACT; these therapeutic protocols are so useful. They have helped so many people. Um, there is another way to help people overcome difficulties. And if we're sort of in a landscape where everything is very trauma focused, then that becomes the pattern and that becomes the narrative. So then before you can actually find a solution that could actually potentially help you, you might kind of already start on not the right foot forward
Yeah.
if
Reliving your
trauma is
trauma
the
is
starting point.
one. Right. Yeah. So I love it. And that's why possibility development, and these are those worlds, these are these foundational building blocks of Evrmore that all are about, future casting and instead of doom spiral, which we said before. And those are sort of, the Cliff Notes versions of things, but it just to help people have some sound bites to hold on to. I think, if they take away that, like that's the point here. And we're trying to elevate young people, although designed for youth mental health and Gen Z. This is something I know I've shared with many adults, myself included, and friends. So it's really for a wide variety of folks who are open to looking at themselves and the world in a different way and finding their, what did we say? What do they say? The main character, finding out that the main character still has a lot left to be written for their story. And I thank you so much for joining me today. And, I'll see you soon, of course.
Thank you for having me. I have so much love for you. And going back to Essence, you're showing me every time we speak, every time we get on Zoom and whatnot, you're a beautiful Essence. So
Thank you.
this is a great talk. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Love you. Bye-bye. At the Natanya Experience, we believe we can all rise above challenges, heal, and shine together. And so we give big thanks to our amazing partners who share our vision of universal health and happiness.